In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know in order to go from mid-career professional to the executive level. I'm going to break it down in clear and precise language so you'll have everything you need to take the next step in your career. If you've been trying to move up for a while in your career, but you feel like you're stuck, like you can't quite get to the next level, well, it's probably not your fault. Because honestly, none of this is taught anywhere. It's certainly not usually taught by your bosses, and typically you won't learn any of this in an MBA program either. I certainly didn't. Today I'm sharing with you what I wish I knew when I started my executive career 13 years ago. I've held 5 executive roles. 2 times I was the CEO of a VC-backed company, and I've also closed over $1.5 billion in business in my career, primarily working for publicly traded corporations. And truthfully, I've learned a lot of this stuff the hard way, usually a little too late. Just watching this video would have saved me tons of mistakes and missteps throughout my executive career. And you know, we only have a certain amount of time in our career where we can earn money. Every year that you are not earning money at an executive pay level, you're costing yourself potentially hundreds or at least $100,000 a year in potential compensation. But even more important than money is the ability to create the culture you've always wanted to work in, to make the decisions that you know that you can make, and to lead the company towards the strategy that you think is best suited for the company. You're probably going to be far more engaged and fulfilled when you're driving the boat instead of just pulling the oar. Like my client Julia, who after 60 days, she was actually offered her first VP level role. And we helped negotiate her a fantastic compensation package, but the compensation isn't really the only thing that's driving her. She feels very fulfilled in her role. The work she's doing now is much closer and more aligned with her sense of purpose, which is to help others. And like another one of my clients, Jennifer, who was laid off when we started working together, but after just 3 months, she had interviewed with 7 companies and ultimately chose her dream job in a company where she can put her imprint on the culture in a way she's never been able to before. Honestly, I wish I could go back 13 years and apply all of the lessons that I'm going to teach you in this video to my own career. I kind of wonder where I would be now if I knew this stuff back then. And at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you 2 paths that you can take from here once you've absorbed all of this material. So be sure to stick around for that part. You should grab a pen and paper and start taking notes because I think there's going to be a ton of value for you in this video. So with that, let's get into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the 3 key components that you need in order to build a successful executive career. First of all, who is this video for? Well, this video is for someone who's mid-career, maybe 10 years of experience, right? Somebody who's at or near about 6 figures in income, and you've at least led a few people on a team. But even more important than all of that is that you're an authentic and an empathetic person. You're truthful, honest, earnest, you care about others. You have your own moral compass, right? Maybe you're at a crossroads in your career where you're thinking now is the time to leap into a new direction while you're moving upwards. Maybe you're a little insecure or unsure about your leadership or communication skills, or not really sure how to take the next steps in your career. You certainly are probably confused, frustrated with trying to move into the executive level and just not seeming to be able to move the needle for some reason. But then also you're driven. You're driven to succeed, grow, learn, and accomplish great things, build great teams of people. So it's important. If you have all of these traits, you are probably ready for a big step up in your career. Now, who is this video not for? So just as important as who this is for, there's a lot of people that I don't think I can help. And so if you have less than 5 to 7 years of experience, and look, there's always exceptions. There are some people who have 5 years of experience and are ready to be executives, but that's an exception typically. Generally speaking, if you have less than 5 to 7 years of experience, you just haven't had enough time to hone your business sense yet. Also, if you're a short-term thinker, if you're impatient, if you're trying to figure out how to step over others to get rich quick, this isn't for you. I don't work with career hackers, people who are just looking for shortcuts in their career. I also don't work with people who are selfish, self-absorbed, not a team player. Those people tend to make great individual contributors. I also don't think this is for you if you have a victim mindset. So if you're constantly blaming other people for your lack of success or your failures, you might want to take a look at the mirror and see if maybe the problem is there. If you're not able to commit or take personal responsibility for your own growth, this wouldn't be for you either. Having a consumer versus investor mentality. So a consumer looks at something as how much is this going to cost me? Whereas an investor looks at both the investment upfront, but also the return on that investment. And so myself, for example, I've made massive investments in my own growth, right? So I've spent $50,000 on an MBA. I've spent over $40,000 in executive coaching throughout my executive career. I've had just recently, I paid $10,000 to a couple people to help coach me through skills I didn't have beforehand. So I made these investments knowing that they would return value to me, and they all did. And so as you become an executive, you think more and more like an investor than you do as a consumer. And that's an important thing here. So if you have that consumer mindset and you're just thinking about what is the cost, but not necessarily what is the return, this probably isn't going to work for you either. If you are these things, I just don't think I'm going to be able to help you. So who am I to teach all of this? As I mentioned, I've got 13 years experience as an executive. I'm a 2-time venture-backed founder and CEO of a couple startups. I've also worked in publicly traded companies. Like I said earlier, I've closed $1.5 billion in sales in my career. This is primarily business and government programs that I've closed. All 5 of my executive roles that I've had over the years, none of them were listed online. All of them were found through my executive network. 3 of the roles were actually created for me. There was a company that wanted me to come into their organization and they created a role for me. That's the power of an executive network. And that's what we need to build for you. I'm also an Army veteran. I have an MBA, as I mentioned, and I've mentored hundreds of people in the middle of their career throughout my life. Mentoring and teaching is something that I really enjoy. So why am I doing this? The answer to that question is in August of 2022, I was diagnosed with leukemia and told that I had weeks left to live. And I went into the hospital for about 30 days and it got really bad. At the very worst of it, there was a moment of clarity that I had where it dawned on me that if I do survive this, I want to spend the rest of my life doing something meaningful and impactful. And so for me, that means that I want to spend the rest of my life teaching, mentoring, and helping grow people, and specifically growing leaders. I think there's a shortfall of people who are empathetic and impactful and audacious leaders. I think that leadership isn't something that's taught well, or it's taught incorrectly. There's people who have an incorrect opinion or assertion of what leadership is. Leadership is influence. There are many ways to influence people. You can influence people through positional authority. You can influence people through manipulation. And we certainly see a lot of that today. I'd like to think that we can influence people through positive measures by creating trust, creating empathetic environments. And that's my goal. That's my mission in life now. I've recently retired from my executive career just in the last couple of weeks to start this full time. And I intend to do this for the rest of my life. And I am so excited about it. I love what I'm doing. And I hope you pick up on that excitement and enthusiasm throughout this whole project. So there are these 3 keys that I mentioned to launching your executive career. The first one is you need an executive career blueprint. This is a plan on how to get where you want to go. If you don't know where you're going, then anywhere you go is fine, right? Like if you're just kind of floating along the current of your career and you just kind of land in port to port along the way, well, cool. But if you actually want to drive your career, if you want to align your career with your sense of self-purpose and your morals, then you need to actually architect that and blueprint that out. The second thing you need, most obviously, this is the meat and potatoes, is executive skills, right? So we're going to talk a lot about that. And finally, an executive network. As I mentioned, I found most of, if not all of my executive roles through my executive network. None of them were posted online on LinkedIn or anything like that. So these are the 3 legs of a stool, if you will. Without all 3 of them, it doesn't really work. So let's talk about the executive career blueprint first, right? So this is kind of the foundation of everything that you do going forward. The goal here is to get you on the right track. So when you start, you're not really sure where you are in your career or why you are in your current job, right? Maybe you're working really hard for promotion, but just not getting it. You kind of feel like you've hit a plateau and you've maybe lost passion for what you do. Like you just don't feel connected to your work and you just feel kind of stuck and blah. I know that feeling, believe me. There's a very distinct feeling. Maybe you're a little tired of your industry. Maybe you're tired of the skill that you've been working in for a long time. Or maybe you're tired of the location you're at and you just want to do something new. And you want to work hard, but you want to work hard for something that's going to return value. Like, if you don't know what you're going to do, then, it's really hard to engage yourself in something where you don't know if you're going to get a return for that effort. This is all asking the question, how do you align your career with the life that you want? Here's what you need to do in order to fulfill a actual executive career blueprint. So first thing you need to do is you need to go through a lot of self-discovery. You need to sit down and actually define what your life purpose is, right? You need to understand your personality type and understand how that fits with your role. You need to define your non-negotiables and core principles. I learned in the military that tactics can change, strategy can change, and even the goal can change. But what must never change are your principles and your core values. They must always be sacrosanct. Do you understand what your core values are? Have you ever taken the time to write them down? Have you ever been in conflict with them in a work environment? It's really hard sometimes when you find yourself in conflict with your own morals and personal values, but you need the job. You don't want to be in that situation, especially as an executive. And as an executive, you have far more agency to make change in the organization so that you are aligned and the organization is aligned with your moral values. You need to decide for yourself what a dream outcome would be. What would it be like if you could create the perfect role for yourself? The other thing that you need to do when you take all of this into consideration is actually put together a personal executive brand. This is how you show up to others, what other people see you as, right? All of this kind of creates who you are and how you project yourself to your network, to your friends, to your community, to your family, and so forth. All of this comes together to create a career blueprint, which is a plan to get you to where you want to go in your career. This is far more intensive than just, like a couple little workbooks. This is a lot of self-reflection. This takes a lot of time and honest effort to really stare at yourself in the mirror and think about the person you are today and the person you want to be. And I find that if you go through a program like that, the outcomes are that you're going to have a very clear understanding of what kind of executive and what kind of person you want to be. You're going to understand how to link what you do for a living to your life purpose. And you're going to begin to define a true, authentic personal brand. A brand is a portrayal of yourself, but it's not a mask. It's a portrayal of who you authentically are with confidence. So that is an executive career blueprint. The second thing that you need to build for yourself, all of the executive skills, these are referred to as soft skills, but there's hard skills in here too. This is the meat and potatoes. This is where you actually transform yourself. You're making several significant mindset shifts. Your starting out point, what does that look like? Well, right now you're probably not sure if you're even qualified to be an executive. You may be looking at VP or C-level roles and thinking, I'm not quite ready for that. You might be considering getting some certifications like, a PMP, a CMP, something like that, or an MBA. Should you get an MBA at this level? We'll talk about that. Maybe you're wondering how to develop your executive presence. What does executive presence even mean? Maybe you don't feel like a natural leader. You could be introverted, shy, kind of quiet. I've met a lot of leaders that are like that are actually great leaders. Maybe you're second guessing yourself. You're not quite sure if you're wanting to put out a thought or an idea because it might get pounced on and beat down. Or maybe you're just not confident enough to stand up in a meeting. Or it could be the reverse. Maybe you are overconfident and you are just lawnmowing over everybody who has a different opinion than you. That's another side of the coin here too, right? How do you think and act like an executive? What does that even look like? So here's what you want to do in order to build your executive skills. The first thing you want to work on is building your executive presence. Executive presence is how you show up. It's how people see you. Boiled down even more succinctly, it's having the confidence to speak and communicate clearly in a way that people sense not only your own confidence, but your confidence in them, in the plan, in the organization, and so forth, right? So that presence it's like a gravitas. It's a level of energy or a weight that you hold in a space. Different people have different types of executive presence. You can have a loud, boisterous presence like Tony Robbins, or you can have a quiet, peaceful executive presence. And so like it's okay to be both for different personalities. Both carry a weight to them, but in different ways. Your executive style is something that you want to build, which is how you actually manage others. This is how you actually communicate your expectations to your team and to peers and coworkers and so forth, right? So this is the framework that you use in order to communicate with your team. Executive communications is also about how you speak, how you present, how you share, how you manage meetings, how you lead, how you organize your team, and so forth. All of this stuff, this communication, is how you communicate your thoughts, ideas, and most importantly, questions. You also need to develop your own leadership framework. And so what is a leadership framework? Well, this is based on how you actually want to serve your team. So one way is through servant leadership, which is, a very popular style of leadership. Radical candor is another, where you are just incredibly blunt with people. Conscious leadership is a little more frou-frou, where you create safe spaces for people to get out of emotions and share thoughts at a level that's more logical, and which is all great. I've learned over my career to take pieces and elements of each of these frameworks and put something together that actually suits me best, and I pull from all of these frameworks. Executive management fundamentals, and so what this is more the hard skills, management skills. So leadership might be an art, but management is definitely a science, and so you need to learn how to provide feedback, coach your team, delegate responsibilities, have one-on-one meetings with your team, with your skip levels, with your superiors, and so forth. All of this kind of mechanical stuff that goes into the management side of being an executive. And finally, thinking strategically, right? So I like to think of strategic thinking as thinking horizontally, vertically, and through time. And that means you're looking laterally across your corporation or across the industry. You're looking vertically down into your supply chain and up into your customer base, and you're looking through time. You're looking backwards, but primarily forwards, trying to guess where the world will be in 5 to 7 years from now. When you do all of these things, you're going to have massively radical mindset shifts. The way you think about the world is just different than when you are a mid-career professional. If you're an individual contributor, you're just thinking about yourself. When you're a manager, you're just thinking about your team and the output of your group within a larger team. And then when you're an executive, you're thinking about the whole picture. And so this mindset shift, going from being someone who's only just looking at, a myopic view of the world, to this big picture view of the world, that's a pretty big shift. And so it's important that you learn how to make that mindset shift. You start thinking and acting like an executive, regardless of whatever your current role may be. You could be the janitor and act like an executive, and people will notice that. Also, you'll understand how to lead people effectively, and as I mentioned earlier, ethically. I believe that you can influence people in positive ways. You don't have to manipulate people to get what you want. I know a lot of people who do that, and they're pretty awful people, and I don't want to work with awful people. So I teach you how to build ethically positive ways of influencing people to do the right thing as you understand it. Also looking outward and future biased, right? So again, as I mentioned, executives tend to be looking 5 to 7 years down the road. And so you will start thinking about things 5 to 7 years down the road. So finally, let's talk about executive network. Once you've learned all the executive skills and you understand what your career trajectory should be, now you need to learn how to tap an entirely new job market, which is the executive job market. And this is also referred to as a hidden job market. And the reason is because executive roles tend to not show up on LinkedIn or Indeed. We'll talk about that in a minute. So at the starting point, well, you're probably looking for VP level roles on LinkedIn or Indeed. You're also probably pressing quick apply on LinkedIn so that it sends a boilerplate resume into an or an applicant tracking system or an ATS. And then when that's happening, you're probably not getting any callbacks or not finding anything really interesting online to even apply for. You probably hate networking, especially online. LinkedIn is a special place. It just is a really special place. You probably hate interviewing. Some people are really great at interviews, and I love those people, but you might be uncomfortable and you are always frustrated because you're never quite moving forward in the role. The question here is, how do you actually find good, qualified executive roles that match and align with this newly found sense of purpose and mission in your life? Here's what you need to do. The first thing you need to do is you need to launch a personal executive brand. What is that? As we mentioned earlier, personal brand is basically a reflection of who you are. It's an authentic reflection, hopefully, of who you are. And so if you think about it, people tend to have an idea of who you are as a person. And if that isn't updated regularly, they're going to have this like black and white stale image of you as a person, who you were 6 years ago when they last interacted with you. And so it's important that you keep people, updated on who you are, and they get to see more of you in a way that they feel like they know you. For example, I'm shooting this video and I'm doing this in advance of, having a conversation with people who want to work with me. And I'm doing this because I want you to know about me. I want you to know what I think, what I believe, how, what my moral position on things are, and so forth, right? You will be doing the same thing when you're building a personal executive brand. The other thing you need to do is you need to optimize your LinkedIn profile, and you need to optimize your resume. It's important that you get your resume into a situation where you can rebuild your resume very quickly for every specific individual opportunity that you go after. You want to be working with executive recruiters, which are also known as headhunters. Learn the right way to network with people online and in real life. And what is the right way? Well, the right way to network with people is to build engaging conversations personally with them. You can do this at trade shows, at local meetups, at industry events. You can also do this online, primarily on LinkedIn, unless your industry is just better suited for a different platform. There's a lot of designers who are more on Etsy or Instagram or other platforms where it makes more sense for them to work on. Software people find a lot of common ground on Stack Overflow, for example. So wherever you build this persona is ultimately where you're going to interact with people who are going to want to see this three-dimensional image of you as a person online. You also want to be working around those applicant tracking systems. The ATSs are terrible, and they flush hundreds of great resumes down the toilet every time and bubble up some of the worst resumes, like someone who's got baking experience applying for a software program job is something that showed up on my stack. I'm like, why are you giving, this is ridiculous. So ATSs are trash. You have to find a way around them, and you want to go directly to the hiring managers. That's the trick. And there's plenty of ways to figure out who the hiring managers are and how to interact with them in a way that's not creepy or annoying. Finally, you want to go through interview training. You want to go through negotiation training, and you also want to have a process for mastering the first 90 days in your new executive role. So if you do all of those things, you're going to understand how the executive job market actually works. And you're going to have a great profile, and you're going to have a great resume toolkit, which will let you quickly adapt your resume to the needs of every specific opportunity that you think that you might be a good fit for. You're going to know how to generate custom resumes and cover letters using AI tools, for example. This is something that I teach. But the idea of being able to create a great cover letter using AI based on a bunch of material that you've already pre-built, and then the actual job opportunity itself and how you align to it. If you do this all well, your network will work for you 24/7, online and in real life. People who know you will help share your message to the people who might want to hire you. You will get comfortable at networking online and in real life, and you're going to feel comfortable interviewing, you're going to feel comfortable negotiating, and you're going to know how to continuously grow your career the right way. Once you've learned all of these things, you can apply this again and again and again and continuously, so that at some point People start tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, I have an opportunity that you might be interested in, even if you aren't, even if you're super happy at your current role, you might want to take a look at this one too. So that's the process, making the transition from mid-career professional to executive. It's worked for me. It's worked for several of my clients, and it can work for you too if you're ready to take the next step. And now that you know what it takes to go from a mid-career professional to the executive level, you know that you need an executive career blueprint, which is kind of a roadmap for how to get from where you are to where you want to be. It's diving deep into understanding yourself in relation to your life goals, your life purpose, and how that relates to the work that you do, what career you have, what industry you work in, what location you work in. All of that builds this blueprint for where you go from here. And there's a lot of self-work that's a part of that. Getting into the executive skills that you need, right? Executive presence, communication, executive style, all of these skills that you need in order to actually be an executive, to think like an executive, to think strategically, to think future biased, right? All of these skills that are hard skills, but mostly soft skills in sense of the skills you need in order to actually interact with other people in a certain way and to think about problems in a certain way. And then finally, this executive network, which is how you go about finding roles that aren't necessarily published online, that aren't even necessarily real roles until someone sees you and sees a problem that they have and say, I want this person in my company solving this problem for me, and they create a role for you. That's why a lot of the executive roles aren't published, because they're not created until someone realizes they actually need you on their team. And so you're doing all of this forward work, which is kind of like marketing yourself almost, to build this presence of who you are in the minds of several hundreds people that then carry your message to thousands of other people, and only takes one of them to want you to come work with them to put you in an executive role. So those three things, the blueprint, the skills, and the network, all of those things, they come together, right? Now you know how to do all of this. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there's two paths that you can take. Path A, you know what to do now, right? I've walked you through what you need to do in order to become an executive. These are the things that you absolutely need to do. And if you do them well, you'll be an executive. You don't need me to walk you through that. I've shown you what to do. But now you have to go figure out how to do this on your own. Path B is that you come work with me. And if we're a fit for each other, then we'll work together until you're in an executive role. That's what I'm offering to you. At the end of the day, there are three elements to success, not the keys, but three elements to success that I've learned throughout my career. And those are structure, discipline, and accountability. I provide the structure and the accountability for you to take the next step. You bring the discipline, and together as coach and client, we get you to where you're trying to be. So I get a lot of questions about my program, which basically walks you through all of these things that I mentioned, right? So we build your career blueprint, we build all of your executive skills, and we activate your executive network. In my program, you're working with actual headhunters, you're working with people who teach you how to build your own resume, AI-enabled system, all these really cool things. You're also working with other executives who are growing and learning just as you are as well as part of the program. I get a lot of questions about what this program is actually like. And so I just wanted to go ahead and answer some of these questions right away. The first question everyone asks is, how much does your program cost? And so I'm just going to go ahead and give you the answer to that question right now. The answer is the program, as of July 2023, which is when I'm recording this, is $7,500, and it's a one-time fee that you pay up front. On occasion, I can do like a split pay where you pay it over a month or two. And then I also do offer a discount to veterans. So if you're a military veteran, I give you a discount to that value, to the cost of that program. But I want you to think about this not just in terms of what the cost of the program is. Think about it, as I mentioned earlier, this investor versus consumer mindset. This is part of the executive mindset shift that you have to make. You look at the ROI, not just the cost of the program. So if the program is $7,500, what is the ROI? I'll give you an example. I took these numbers from Glassdoor. They're just generic examples. So let's say that there's a senior manager with 10 years experience, and she's earning $120,000 a year base with a $20,000 annual performance bonus. Pretty typical rate for someone at that level. Now let's say that this person goes through my program. They make a $7,500 investment in themselves. They're promoted to vice president in a small business, or they would be promoted to director in a large corporation, and those are kind of similar to each other in terms of pay grade and also authority. This person is promoted, and the average rates for these roles would be $180,000 a year with a $60,000 annual performance bonus. And again, these are just averages. These are just statistics. So it could be a whole lot more, a whole lot less in every direction, right? Your mileage will vary. But I'm just using this as an example. But what you learn from this example is that this person is making $100,000 a year return on investment. So they 10x, more than 10x their investment in the first year of working as a VP, right? And this is what I was saying at the very beginning of the video. When you only have so many working years in your career, every year that you're not earning executive level pay is money that you're burning, that you're not earning, that you don't have. And so just a very logical approach to looking at things, a $7,500 investment and an investment in some time and some personal growth, leading to the part of your career where you earn the most, where you can impact people the most. And that's the other thing, right? You'll be working in alignment with your life purpose. You'll be influencing the culture and the strategy of the organization that you're a part of. And you'll be a confident person, well equipped to be a leader on a fast track. When you take all of that into consideration, the cost of this program, it's a 10x return on investment in your first year, typically on average, right? And so it could be a lot more, it could be a lot less, but you get the idea, right? Just, take your own situation into consideration and think about things from this perspective, not necessarily just what the cost of the program is. What is the time investment? This is another really big question that I get often. The answer to this question is that it's a 60 to 90 minute weekly coaching call that you and I go through. This can also be done at your own pace, right? If you can't make it every week, that's okay. I've had clients, skip a couple of weeks here and there. I have one client who's going through a professional program right now. And so there's been a several week gap for this one client. So it's okay. It doesn't have to be exactly every week. You show up and come do the work, though. There is homework for you to do. There's a lot of self-work, especially in the beginning of the program, that you need to do. There's a lot of journaling, self-discovery, a lot of work like that you have to do in your own time. We work together, generally speaking, for about 3 months. And in that 3 months, it's pretty intense where we're working together, weekly, sometimes even daily. But then after that, the level of effort that you and I are putting into each other falls off a little bit, and then it's more just connecting with each other. I don't push anyone out of the program. You're always welcome to stay in the program for as long as you want, because my perspective is, if you become an executive, well, you're now a great part of a network that all of the people that are joining this program become themselves. And so you can then network with the people that are in the program, and they can network with you as well. You would all be like-minded executives. You're in the program for a lifetime. There's much less of a time commitment to working with me in this program than there would be if you did an MBA, or if you did, another, professional certification program like a CCNA or a PMP or something like that. So if you think about that now, between question 1 and 2, it's 1/10 the cost of an MBA. An MBA typically runs about 70, 80 grand total. So an MBA is 10 times the cost of this program. So it'd be 1/10 the cost and 10 times your ROI in the first year alone. Pretty significant investment. If you can devote 4 to 6 hours a week, then we should work together. If you want to grow your career, if you want to, raise your income 70 to 100% on average, this is the program that you want to invest in. What if you just need help with your job search, right? What if you're just you're already an executive, or I've got all the executive skills. I know where I'm going in my career. I just need to learn the networking tips and tricks. The answer is, I'm probably not the right person for you to work with. My program is holistic, and it's that way on purpose. My goal is to teach you how to become a highly effective and empathetic leader and an executive. And so I teach all 3 of these things together. I don't break them apart. It doesn't make sense for me to do that. I do know some fantastic people that you can work with if you just need help with your resume, with your LinkedIn profile, with negotiation or interviewing. If you want to just focus on the job search, hit me up, let me know, and I will connect you with some great people who would be glad to work with you one-to-one. What if you are not a natural leader? Well, I mean, none of us are natural born leaders. Leadership is something that you can learn. Executive presence is something that you can learn. I've learned it myself and I've taught it myself. And so I know that you can go from someone who's not necessarily comfortable being a leader to someone who's very great at being leaders. In fact, people who tend to be uncomfortable as a leader tend to become the best leaders. It's pretty crazy how that's a pretty hard and fast rule. People who are natural at just assuming leadership roles, they tend to become great leaders too, but they have blind spots. And when you have to work at it, you really put a lot of effort into it, then you actually wind up becoming usually an even better leader than someone who's just a natural talent at it. You don't have to be a loud, outspoken person in order to be a great leader. You can speak quietly, but you can speak with impact. A lot of people just don't want to post on LinkedIn. And the answer is you don't have to. You don't have to put anything on LinkedIn, but it is the fastest, most powerful way to build your brand. Your personal executive brand will be what carries your message in your network, and online networking carries your message much farther than in-person networking. What I've learned is that in-person networking is something that you build very deep relationships with people when you meet with them one-to-one, face-to-face in real life. So the depth of a connection in person is much deeper than the depth of connection online. The reach of an online connection is far greater than the reach of an in-person connection. And so you actually need both in your network. You need both parts of your network working for you, in person and online. You can build a brand for yourself and present yourself in a way that's authentic and honest and transparent, but also comfortable for you. And I do this. There's a lot of work here that we do together on getting this right, but it can be done. When you don't actively manage your brand, that's also a brand. There are plenty of people who are like, I don't do this online thing. That's not for me. They are branded as people who just won't work with online technology. For the most part, if that's them and they're okay with that, then cool. I just find that the online networking piece is critical to helping your network actually carry your message. Something else that I'll share with you, there are guardrails in networking, right? You can share too much and you can share too little. I will let you know if you hit the narcissist guardrail, but most people are usually riding up against the not sharing enough guardrail. And so it takes time to put yourself out there and be comfortable putting yourself out there. Trust me, I've been doing this online thing for a while. I had to grow a lot in order to get comfortable staring at a camera with a giant bright light facing at me. But we will work together to figure out how to build the right way for you to build your brand online and in real life. Finally, I get this question a lot. Should you get a certification like an MBA or a PMP, SHRM, CPA, something like that? The answer is certifications don't hurt, but they don't necessarily help either. And if you think about what a certification is, these certifications are proof and they're indicators that you have the ability to excel in a mid-career role, not an executive role. So there is no executive certification. My program is probably the closest thing that there is to that, but there's no certification, no seal, no diploma you can put on a wall that says, I am now certified to be an executive. It's interesting because the military actually does have this. They have what's called charm school for generals and admirals in the US military. And so they actually go through this program when they are promoted from captain to admiral or from colonel to general. They go through charm school, which is kind of like executive polish school. But here in a civilian world, we don't have anything like that. Anytime you go and get a certification, it's certainly, it's another bona fides to include in your resume. It's just demonstrating that you have the professional skills, not the executive skills. So keep that in mind. The better investment, if you're considering making an investment in an MBA or something like that, would be to consider executive coaching and executive career coaching to build your blueprint, your skills, and your network, because those are the areas that are actually going to move the needle on moving your executive career forward. And none of these certifications would give you a 10 times ROI in your first year. That's the extent of the program. Those are all the questions that I had to answer. If this is interesting to you, first of all, thank you for making it to the end of this video. It was a little bit longer than I had anticipated. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you get a lot of value from this. Let me know if this was valuable to you. Leave a comment and just tell me if this was valuable. Tell me if it was too long. Tell me if it wasn't long enough. I'd appreciate that feedback. But most importantly, if you are ready to take that next step in your career, book a call. Let's talk about it. I'll be glad to answer a whole lot more questions. I'll give you more detail about how the program works, how we would work together, and how we can get you to where you're trying to go in your executive career. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.